It's the Go Gopher podcast with Mike Grimm, episode number 23. I am Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the Go Gopher podcast. I'm really excited for this week's show, even more so than usual. We're going to talk to former Gopher men's basketball player Al Nolen, who is now impacting his hometown of Minneapolis in an awesome and incredible way. And there are ways our Go Gopher podcast listeners can help, so stick around to listen. Al Nolen was a star player at Minneapolis Patrick Henry High School and was a 4-year player for the Golden Gophers from 2007 through 2011. He's now helping mentor boys and girls through the Nolen Foundation and his Academy of Excellence. It's an amazing program that will start its second year next month. Al's an inspiration to the young people in his hometown, and I know you'll be inspired to hear his story and hear how he is making things better in the community. And yes, we'll also throw it back and remember some of the really good Tubby Smith teams that Al played for. Our Go Gopher podcast is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. Get a confidential, no-cost, no-obligation business valuation started today. Make the most of your life's work. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. Our podcast is also sponsored by State Farm agent Tony Hoagland at ChamplinInsurance.com. Tony loves Golden Gopher basketball. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast as well. It's free to click the subscribe button, and you can listen at any time. You can also go back to listen to our previous podcast. That includes last week's podcast, which showcased Big Ten sports writer Scott Docterman from The Athletic. He was talking about Big Ten football. I'd also invite you to offer feedback on our podcast or share or retweet links to the Go Gopher podcast so others can find out about the podcast and they too can listen for free. When we come back, we have former Golden Gopher basketball player Al Nolen and his important story. But first, a word from Tony.
Hey Gopher fans, this is your State Farm agent Tony Hoagland. We are super excited to be part of the new Mike Grimm Show on Talk North. For the year of 2022, we will be donating $10 to the University of Minnesota Children's Masonics Hospital for everyone that calls our office or checks in with us online and mentions that they heard about us on Talk North and the Mike Grimm Show. We are really excited again that Mike came on board with Talk North. You can reach us at 763-421-4900. You can find us on the web at ChamplinInsurance.com. Again, 763-421-4900, or find us on the web at ChamplinInsurance.com. Roll the boat, Sky Yuma, go Gophers.
It's episode number 23, the Go Gopher podcast. Welcome back. Mike Grimm with you, and it's our pleasure to welcome to the Go Gopher podcast here for episode 23, former Golden Gopher guard Al Nolen, a Minneapolis native. He played for the Golden Gophers from 2007 to 2011. We'll talk about some of his playing days here in a little bit, but first of all, we want to find out what he's up to now, and he's got some really exciting, impactful things coming up here in the summer, so we're excited to hear about it. And first of all, Al, it's always good to see you.
Yeah, Mike, thank you for having me. It's awesome to see you as well. You know, it's been a while.
Yeah, we occasionally will see you at a ball game. We'll have you on. Spencer and I will have you on at halftime, and you'll give us an update. But not everybody listens all the time. So tell everybody what you're up to nowadays. You think about that. 2011 was your final year, which we'll talk about, of course, that crazy injury, which kind of, basically ended your college career and thwarted that season a little bit. But it's 10 years, almost 11 years ago now. Time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, time flies. It doesn't even seem like that long, and like you were saying, I've been back on campus a few times. It's like things have really changed around there, and it's just amazing to see.
Yeah, have you seen the new Athletes Village and the new basketball facility?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I believe 2 years ago to take a couple of my students down and get a tour of those facilities. It was amazing. I mean, it has to be one of the top 5 in the country, the way they set it all up. I wish they had that back when I played.
Well, I know another guy, I'll ask you about Tubby here in a minute, but Tubby Smith was your head coach, and he talked about that often, the importance of, it was just not very convenient to practice all the time, and now it is, and hopefully the rewards will be soon to come under Ben Johnson, which, again, we'll talk about that. So you're up to what nowadays? Your playing days were done. I know you had a stint overseas for a little bit, and kind of take us through what you're up to now and kind of how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so I played overseas a bit, Czech Republic, Germany, played in the D League for a brief second, and then I started a career in education. So I was working as a seventh grade dean of students, bounced around to a couple schools. And as of late, I've just recently started the Nolen Foundation, which is support at-risk youth, and particularly low income neighborhoods. My neighborhood in Minneapolis is what I started the focus of targeting first and foremost with summer programming. Where it's basketball centered. It's called the Academy of Excellence. And like I said, it's basketball center where we're reeling the kids in with some athletics, and then we're able to feed them some different things and inform the classroom pieces surrounding, social and emotional learning, wellness and nutrition. So, they understand the importance of a diet and how that, can attribute to your learning or your mood or your behavior, and also financial literacy, and just some different things surrounding some other key elements, I think, that will help them to be successful in everyday life.
What has kind of driven you into that area? Being a Minneapolis guy, and I know you take a lot of pride in that. Is that kind of the impetus to that?
Yeah, I growing up, I played for, the legend coach Larry McKenzie, who's now at Minneapolis North, and he was huge on that in high school with study hall for us and just really disciplined in. Also, when I got to the University of Minnesota, I didn't have good study habits, and I know Coach Smith and the rest of the staff did a great job of supporting me there. I had my pitfalls while I was there, but was able to turn it around. However, after being there and having those struggles, I understood the importance of having these habits. And also when I got to school, I was surrounded by a lot of other students and peers who already had developed those habits and had been groomed, for going to school and to be ready to be successful. And so, I was like, man, I really need to go back in my neighborhood and we really need to, feed these kids this knowledge and give them the information and instill these values and these habits in them in order for them to be successful in whatever, dreams or goals they look to pursue. Because right now they're really not getting it. And I know also it's hard because there's a lot more going on to life. So sometimes it's hard to focus on, what people may seem as secondhand nature of the basic things.
Yeah, and young people are dealing with so much now, and I'd have to say probably particularly kids in Minneapolis. There's been so much here in the past couple of years with social unrest and inequity and, different things. And then on top of it, probably some economic challenges in certain areas. And, I'm guessing that's part of what you're pushing here, too, to help, as you mentioned, some of the things that maybe you wish you had known back in the day and get these kids, an opportunity to learn. And I also think it probably helps to hear it from you. You're a guy that, that played at the U, that can tell about an experience playing in the G League or playing pro hoops, and whether it's basketball or some other vehicle to learn from.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one you hit the nail on the head. It's huge because I am those kids, and like I said, my path wasn't straight. I had a ton of pitfalls. I had a ton of my adversity to overcome, which only, helped me to build resilience and helped me to become, a better human being. And so, I can speak to it firsthand. Even some of my students, I tell them about, these different pitfalls and I try to preach to them about what they need to do academically. I can go online and pull myself up and say, hey, you can read an article about me being academically ineligible. I'm not lying to you. I've been there. I've done it. I'm able to sit here now in front of you and tell you and kind of guide you and help navigate. A lot of times I have to show them, that article because, they just see the finished product and they don't understand that it took a lot of work and it took a lot of, support and mentors. And like I said, had great, counseling at the University of Minnesota. I told them, putting in 10 hours of study hall every day and, counselor just called me, making sure I was, handling my business and had everything organized. So, I'm definitely a great example due to, me going through those different, overcoming, those different challenges.
I remember that 2010 season where you mentioned it, so I'll follow up if you're comfortable talking about it and helping share that story. 2010, you got a good team going, and then you were pronounced academically ineligible, and I didn't hear it, but I'm sure there were people like, boy, Al's ineligible. Is he gonna make it here at the U? Not only then is you flip it, because not only do you make it, you play then the next year until a bad injury, but you get your degree, and now you're contributing to the community. What'd you take from that? What was that a turning point for you, do you think, in your life? Maybe, I mean, even bigger than basketball, that time you went through in 2010?
Yeah, absolutely. And going into school, I was on the edge of not even qualifying and possibly having to go JUCO. So I was able to get in, and like I said, I was given a plan of extensive plan of what I needed to do. And during my time, a lot of guys don't understand Division I basketball is a job. It's not, once you get there, you got to strap your boots up and get to work. And really the focus is on basketball. And so, not only was I struggling in the classroom, but also struggling on and off the court and dealing with some different things, which I think is great now that, colleges and professional teams are getting mental health support for the athletes, because I think it's huge when you're trying to balance school, balance the social life, and then also balance basketball, which is really a job in college. So going through that and then being academically ineligible and kind of just happened to that to be a tough pill to swallow and dig myself back out the hole definitely created fire in me. And so then coming back that senior year, we're off and rolling. We beat North Carolina there. We're ranked 8th in the country. Had when I counted like 6 or 7 guys that were drafted, and still a couple playing in the NBA right now. Beat West Virginia, win the Puerto Rico Classic. We're ranked 13th in the country. We're at an all-time high. And then the next thing I break my foot, and it's like, oh man, we were having a great senior year. And so a lot of those things, if you don't let them deter you and just knock you, take you completely out, can definitely build character in you. So for you to move on in life and to be able to handle different situations that life will throw at you.
What's the reaction you get maybe if you see a young person going through some struggles and you can share that story firsthand? Do kids kind of open their eyes and say, oh, wow, that's that's some inspiration there?
Yeah, a lot of the kids I know when I work in the school system, they're like, why are you working in the school system? Why aren't you still playing basketball? You should be in the NBA or, and all those different type of things. And I have to tell them, like, hey, everybody, at some point, you got to come to reality, especially in athletics. You're not going to be, 20, 25, 30 all your life and be able to immobile like that. And so, a lot of them really open their eyes because I don't really speak on my playing career too much around them. Mm-hmm. However, if they do find out maybe from a colleague of mine or happen to see an article or whatnot, they'll ask about it and I'll let them know it. And then they're just usually astonished. And then it helps to develop a relationship with them a lot more because it's something that a lot of students and kids want to do, especially basketball is extremely popular now. I know people like to say Minnesota's a hockey state, but we're kind of challenging that with basketball around here right now.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just what the last couple of drafts, right? Kids, not necessarily Gophers. Hopefully, more Gophers in the future, but kids from the area, right? Kids from the Twin Cities who are kids from Minneapolis who have been drafted and now are playing in the league. So there's no question there's been some progress and also offer some motivation. You mentioned the mental health part of it, and that now I find and it's come a long way here in just the last few years, because I think there was probably some, I suppose, and you can maybe speak to this at a time in which you might have needed some help. Maybe it was an embarrassment to go ask and say, hey, I'm struggling here a little bit. Can you share those experiences? One, through the 2010 situation we talked about, and then you break your foot and your career is essentially over at the college level. That couldn't have been easy. Had to be lonely a lot, sitting in a dorm and having to watch your teammates play, at Indiana on TV or what have you.
Absolutely. So, being ineligible, of course, it's hard to, ask for help and already knowing coming in that I was a kid that most people didn't think would make it. And then for that to come to fruition, it was really tough. It was really embarrassing walking around campus, being in class, being around my peers. I had people, being mean to me on social media. I had to shut my social media down. but fortunately enough, I was able to, my family rallied around me, coaches rallied around me, the counseling staff rallied around me, my teammates. And, I was able to go hard that summer and come back. And then, as you spoke of, to break my foot my senior year. And then it's kind of like, you're done and trying to rehab during the summertime and knowing you're not going to come back to college. And really, that's where I was getting the best medical attention, I had the most support. And so it's kind of like, all right, now you're going off into the real world, with this injury, not 100% and kind of having to rehab on your own and figure things out on your own with the agent. And the uncertainty if you're going to play again, the uncertainty if somebody will actually, I got drafted in the G League, but it's like, I got cut because I was on crutches during the time when I went to Erie to play for the Knicks D League affiliate at the time. And just the uncertainty of it and the ups and downs and trying to deal with it definitely took a toll on me. However, I feel like I'm pretty mentally tough and, playing under Coach Smith, that's kind of what he preached is mental toughness. And so that's a characteristic that he instilled in us that carried over from the court into the real world.
And do you see now, I think it's much more, I guess it's easier, I think, maybe for athletes. I mean, it's a harder time for athletes, even maybe from a newer, because this social media thing is,
Right.
It's pretty toxic at times. And I feel for some of the guys and what they have to go through, and females as well. And we the women's gymnastics team, remember, over the Olympics and all, just the pressure that mounts because you feel like, I suppose, the world's caving in on you if something doesn't go right. That said, I think it's become more acceptable to say, hey, I'm not right this particular moment. I might need some help. I'm going to sit out or I'm going to go see somebody. And I think we've made some progress that way. And I guess I'd ask the question after setting that as a backdrop, is that something you try to instill even in young kids too, that, hey, if you need some help, raise your hand. Somebody, is going to, be there or try to be there.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, as you spoke about after, the social unrest around here with the incident with George Floyd and then also the pandemic. And I know a lot of our students, even the University of Minnesota, you went remote. A lot of students went remote. So you're sitting at home in those four walls. A lot of kids, are used to the social interaction and coming to school. A lot of them may not have I know a lot of kids that I work with didn't have the necessarily the resources. Some didn't have internet at home, didn't have the technology. And then, some of the households, that they were at wasn't the best. So coming to school was the most stable environment for them. And so, a lot of them have struggled for these past 2 years. I struggled myself with, everything these past couple of years. And so just being able to go to them and say, hey, I understand you're going through difficult times. However you do, I would love to sit down and would love to provide a space for you to share your emotions and to work through them and to address them. And then, myself and others can try and help give you some tools on how to manage and how to deal with it and how to cope. And so, yeah, it's definitely been, a rough past 2 years for all parties involved. And I think it's more important than ever now that we provide that support for, not only our kids, but adults as well, and our athletes as they go through, these tough times, with, like you said, social media at an all-time high. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing when it's going well, but, you lose a game here or there, or something doesn't go right. You got 1,000 people coming at you. I'll give you a tab, and I'll tell you what was the tough social media back or kind of the tough thing back in the day. And I used to tell all the guys when they came on the team what they should do. I said, listen, the newcomers, I remember telling DeVoe Joseph, I said, man, you have to stop reading Gopher Hole, man.
Yeah, the message boards, right? Yeah.
Yes, and that was kind of one of the things that guys would love to go to, and sometimes they'll give them a high because they're getting praise and kudos, and then sometimes bring it, take them down and bring them low. So it's like, you got to keep that happy medium.
Yeah, for sure. And I've always thought too that fans are passionate. So from the passion side of them, you got to appreciate that they care. They want the team to win. But what sometimes that fuels some anger when things don't necessarily go the way that they hope for the Gophers or whatever team they're cheering for. And I think sometimes they think of you guys as players as just these pawns or these robots. Like there's no emotion. Right. It's not a human being. It's a video game. And so it's easy to punch on a keyboard, Al Nolen this or Blake Hoffarber this or nowadays, whatever, Jameson Battle this. And and it just, they sometimes forget, hey, this is a 19-year-old kid, a 20-year-old kid who has enough issues going on. They don't need half the fan base turning on them. And hopefully hopefully we get to a point where there's a better happy medium, because it does, boy, it can get toxic, and I can see how a young person could really start getting down on life, not just about their game or themselves, but just life in general. So hopefully fans, I think we can appreciate the passion, but sometimes you also have to,
definitely appreciate the Gopher passion. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, but also support is so meaningful, right? And if there's a time to support us, maybe when a kid's going through a 1 for 22 on the 3-point stripe, and not going on the Twitter or social media or the message boards and saying they should never let him shoot again. How about stick with him or what have you? Anyway, that we could probably go a whole hour just on those things. And you're right. I think that was it was really kind of starting about the time you guys, like Twitter and some of those things. The message boards though were big at that point, because that was the way fans, and it still is, but now you got Twitter where everyone's an expert, right?
Yeah, and I was just sitting down. I was at Damian Johnson's house with him and Trevor Mbakwe, and we were just sitting down talking about how we're so glad that we're not in the era of social media when we were playing in college, because we would have had so many issues. Yeah. You have to feel sorry to a certain extent for the players at times, and I mean, there's the positives to it with the new NIL and whatnot. But however, I know when I was playing, I definitely wanted to play in this era with all this social media and having this access and just eyeballs on you and everyone talking about you and just news cycle 100 miles an hour. That would have been definitely difficult for myself.
Yeah, because people just don't want to accept that human beings occasionally might make a mistake, right?
Absolutely.
Every now and then there's a mistake made. There's no need sometimes just to jump it. There's no need to point it out. People know when they mess up.
Exactly, especially college students. It's gonna happen. They're gonna do some dumb things.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt. Well, hey, tell us about the Nolen Foundation and when it started and kind of how you've progressed into being a factor and an impact now in Minneapolis.
Absolutely. So I started it last year. So the Nolen Foundation it was obviously the foundation, and then the program under the umbrella of the Nolen Foundation is called the Academy of Excellence. And so the Academy of Excellence is a 5-week summer program, 4 days a week, 4 hours a day. As I said before, so we do, basketball, skills and drills. So we're working on ball handling, working on some shooting. And then also, we're introducing, some 2-on-2, 3-on-3 to also help teach our young kids how to, pass, cut, screen, just like the basics as we, watch with the NBA Finals and Steph Curry and the Warriors team moving around. And just, I love working with the younger generation. So, it's aimed at 3rd through 8th grade boys and girls. And so, like I said before, we go 5 weeks through the summertime, and it's just, I think, important space during that time where they're, fresh out of school, give them a little bit of time off, but then to kind of fill that gap in for them. And we also, feed them twice a day. I was able to partner with Minneapolis Public Schools food distribution. So we get breakfast and lunch every day for the kids, and then also give them a snack to take home. So making sure they're getting those nutritious meals as well. And then I have a couple financial institutions in the area that are going to come over and do some financial literacy. I had a licensed school psychologist, Jasmine Page. She's actually a graduate from the University of Minnesota. She was able to come through and facilitate some small group circles with some restorative circles, talking about community, school, ball, goals, some positive affirmation activities. So just trying to be a well-rounded program and give the kids, what they want, obviously basketball training, but also at the same time sneak in some things here and there for them to bite and chew on and that they will take with them moving forward into the school year after the program is over.
Wow, that is so cool. And in terms of the academy, then you said it's 4 days a week and for 5 weeks. And is it is it a group of kids comes in one day, or is it the same group comes in every day?
So same group coming in every day. It's it's almost like summer school.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And last year was our first year. This year will be our second year, obviously, and we'll be right over here at off Broadway at Logan Park in Northeast Minneapolis. not too far from campus. And so, we're hoping to try and get some Gopher basketball players over there to, facilitate some program relief for the kids, as long as it's not against the compliance rules. So, of course, I'm going to check with that. So it's going great. And I feel like the kids have loved it. We had a good turnout. We had about 50 kids sign up last year, about solid 25 coming every day. And they seem to enjoy it. Parents love it. We only charge $25 to participate, as that was the whole point of starting the foundation, is to be able to provide, these services, at a low cost, little to nothing, for these communities and the kids that may not have the means to pay for, all this training and whatnot, because it's really popular. A lot of kids love basketball, and a lot of kids are getting involved, and it's also an opportunity in particular too, is to make it multicultural. We got a lot of different cultures, different backgrounds, kids coming from different areas in the state to all can participate in the gym and get to know one another, and just work together and build. And something that's extremely important to me. As you spoke of before, Blake Hallparker, I played with him 2 years AAU prior to even coming to the University of Minnesota. And so that was huge for me to be able to play like guys like yourself. And to be able to develop those relationships and get to know him. And, we came from, two totally different places. And then, we continue to still have a close-knit relationship to this day. We take it back and forth. And he supported the foundation as well. So it's just something that I want to build. And I think it's really important, especially during this time, to get these kids not only basketball training, but all of these other different qualities as well, to help them become well-rounded young people.
So I think one of the cool aspects, you mentioned maybe some former Gophers, you've got some financial nuggets and everything else, but to be able for kids, and as we've talked about, maybe some financial challenges for some of these families to get some meals, a breakfast and a lunch while you're getting basketball skills, that might be as important as any of anything you're doing as part of this academy.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of kids, I know, even particularly myself, when I was a kid, a student, young, living with my mother, I relied on those school meals every day, breakfast and lunch. Those were huge to me, because as I got home, sometimes, we would scramble trying to find out, figure out what we were going to eat. And so I think it's huge, during the time that they're out of school, that, you have somebody coming to provide that support, where our scholars and their families, know, like, hey, when they go to the Academy of Excellence, we know he's going to be fed breakfast and lunch. And so that's something we don't have to worry about. They can even get snack afterwards. And so, we're just trying to make sure we support them in all facets and as much as possible during these difficult times.
Who is eligible, or who do you target for this in terms of kids you want to help?
So usually I target low-income families, and so I have a registration page that they fill out, and with a bunch of different questions, and kind of go from there. And then also try and recruit kids from the North Minneapolis area. I'm trying to work on getting into Minneapolis public schools and developing a partnership with them as I'm a product of the school, and then also someone who worked in Minneapolis public schools, and also now that they can look to and say, hey, it's a success story. And so, like you spoke about earlier, I'm somebody that can speak to the plight and the journey. And I think that's important. And so just trying to target those kids in Minneapolis public schools in the North Minneapolis area in particular, and then also in low income areas. But, we're not turning any kids away. We love, for all kids to be a part of it, because as I said before, I think you need, high achievers as well. You need kids coming from the suburbs as well, to just balance it all out so that they can learn from each other and get to understand each other and develop compassion and teamwork and just, learn how to work together and how to build. And then, of course, I'm sure both parties can share, different characteristics, that can help one another, that, they may not have known or may have, haven't developed just yet, but coming to the academy and being a part of it and hearing, each scholar's story is something that I think is huge. And I've even had them talk to me about, like, hey, Coach Al, we kept up with so-and-so over TikTok over the summertime, and we can't wait to go. Why does it have to start in July? Why can't it start in June? So, and they've developed, relationships that I'm sure are going to continue to grow, especially as we talk about social media. It's so easy, to communicate. So, I'm just really excited about it. I'm looking forward to it this summer.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great stuff. So if we probably don't have any 3rd to 8th graders listening to the Go Gopher podcast, podcast, but I bet we have some sports fans who are moms and dads or grandpa and grandmas who may have some kids or grandkids that, hey, my kid might be a fit for this. If so, how can they at least get info to find out if they are a fit and maybe have their son or daughter or granddaughter or grandson enrolled?
Yeah, so they can just go to alnolenfoundation.com. So my name, www.alnolen, Nolen with the E,
yep.
Foundation or .org, foundation.org, and all the information will be there where they can look at the programs and the different description of the program, and then also some video from the program, some stories that were written up on the program, and then also there's a registration page as well if they're excited. And then, with being a foundation, we love in-kind donations. Anybody want to give us tips to resources? I know, I've been down at the U of M. We have some great people down there that are looking to support with providing bikes. I'm looking to get the kids that are close in the area some transportation. So I was like, hey, I'll provide you a bicycle. If you want to ride your bike, a couple blocks here, back and forth. It's a great way for physical activity. And then also you can keep the bike once the program is finished. And it'll give you, some, way to move around in the neighborhood. So yes, we would love for anyone to, if they have any kids, 3rd, 8th grade boys or girls that would be interested in getting them in the program, just visit alnolenfoundation.org. And if you want to support in any type of way, we would love that as well. If you want to send just a letter of encouragement, we would be open to that. So all support is welcome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're right, Al Nolen with an E, N-O-L-E. And it took me about 2 years on my boards when I was doing your games on the radio to spell your last name right. I for years had spelled it Nolan, and he's an E. Yeah, very good. But we got it right now. We're doing well that way. But you led into my next question there a little bit. If there's also somebody listening that maybe doesn't have a son or a daughter of that age, but has been inspired by your story here and listening to this, either hey, I want to support it financially, as you mentioned, or maybe it's somebody in the community that said, I want to come and talk to these kids. I think I can offer some wisdom somehow. Is it the same way? Just get in touch through the webpage?
Yep. Just go to the webpage, and then there's a contact me on the slot where you can connect with me and send me your information. We can set up a time for you to come by. If it's something where you want to, it's like, hey, I have some resources that I think would be great for the kids, whether it be basketballs, some T-shirts, shoes, food, whatever the case may be, equipment that they think could help us to we could use during our skills and drills. Like I said before, this is only our 2nd year, so we definitely would love any type of support out there, Gopher Nation, that we can get.
Yeah, I just think it's so cool. This is a 5-week program, 4 days a week. Meals are served. They're learning basketball. They're learning some life skills. I mean, it's just pretty cool. That's for sure. It's called the Academy of Excellence, the Al Nolen Foundation, alnolenfoundation.org for info. I know you also had a program. I was looking through some stuff called the Min of Integrity. Can you tell us a little about that? And is that something that's maybe got a future too, that you'll have some more of those?
Yeah, so the Min of Integrity was a program I started when working, working in education, working schools, an after school program, and really, it's what inspired me as well to start the foundation. Working in education, I was able to learn a lot of different things. A little bit of educational jargon and some practices that I decided to say, hey, I'm gonna pair this with basketball. It's like, hey, I'm well versed in basketball, and I do basketball skills and training, but I'm also learning the other educational side and educational piece as far as like restorative practices and whatnot. And so I wanted to pair the two together. And so Min of Integrity is what we're looking to do following the summer program, which will be an after school program. And so that's what I mentioned, whether we're going into the schools, 1 day a week and sitting down and communicating with the kids, where it's like, hey, we're following up on your participation, your grades, your behavior, and your attendance in school. And then we're sitting down and having a conversation about it. And then we're also just following up and making sure you're handling your business and connecting with your teachers. And so that's something I want to do following the Academy of Excellence, to continue to support the kids through those 7 months during the school year, whether it be them coming back to the park or Minneapolis allow me to come in once a week to facilitate small circles and connect with the kids.
Yeah, man, that's awesome as well. One other quick note, I think, is as I was looking through some of the materials as well, you mentioned it's already pretty inexpensive, the Academy at $25. But while $25 may not sound like a lot to me, for some families that might be too much. You have some scholarships and you have some funding that if someone can't afford the $25, you're not going to turn a kid away if he's eligible and wants to come.
No, not at all. So it's, like I said, it was $25 of scholarships are available. We had over 50% of our scholars last year that were on scholarship. So like I said before, we want to offer it to low cost, and that's why I made it, created a foundation because I was doing a lot of basketball skills and drills and programming. But I said to myself, how do I provide these services in my community for low cost and still be able to garner resources to be able to do it efficiently and for, them to really get the experience that they deserve, although they may not have, the financial capability of it. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's $25. However, we offer scholarships. So please do not be discouraged at all by the $25.
Yeah, obviously a great price, but obviously still, if someone needs help, there's there. What about your upbringing in Minneapolis? I also think of like Tyler Johnson, who you two are two of my favorite guys to watch play and compete, and the pride I remember he still has, the Tampa Bay Buccaneer, the receiver, who was also a pretty darn good basketball player in his day. What is it about when I watch you guys, and it's a different kind of pride, I think, than you see from some other places and other kids maybe that come from different places. What is it about Minneapolis that you and a Tyler Johnson, I know there's many others, I shouldn't single you guys out, but you two stand out to me in terms of we want to help Minneapolis?
Yeah. I believe just historically, as far as athletics, Minneapolis sometimes has been left out. There's been a lot of guys picked up from a lot of the suburbs and rural areas, and Minneapolis has been left out, and we have a lot of really great athletes in Minneapolis. And once you're able to get that opportunity to go play for the University of Minnesota, it's like, you can't take that for granted. And so just being able to get the scholarships, like, hey, I really had to, first of all, take pride in my city and then take pride in being offered this. And so every day it's going to be a grind. Every day I'll have to put in 100% effort and then, help the fans in the nation and your teammates understand how much it means to you and how much pride you take in being a Gopher and being from the state. It's huge to be from the state of Minnesota and then play for the University of Minnesota. And I try to tell kids that all the time. There's nothing like playing at home. Even after once you're done playing, there's still so many people that come up to you and talk to you and talk about the Gopher years, and it's just it's a beautiful thing. And so I think that's just the difference of kids that come from Minneapolis. They're historically have been overlooked, and so when they happen to get the opportunity to play at the U, it's amazing. It's like, hey, we don't really want to take it for granted. We really want to show and prove that more kids from the Minneapolis area. You need to just take a second look.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch you guys for sure. You mentioned Blake, and I know you are close with some others. You've mentioned Trevor and Damian as well. How many of those guys from your days gone by do you still stay in touch with and get together with? And I don't even know, do you still play some pickup ball with maybe?
Yeah, so pickup ball, no, I don't play any more pickup ball. I've hung it up officially. But yeah, Trevor and Damian, I get together with those guys pretty often. Obviously they're into the athletics world in high schools. I know Trevor's at Eden Prairie and Damian's over at Benil St. Margaret, and so I go out and check out their games. I was able to go watch. Their teams played last year. Benil played Eden Prairie at Eden Prairie, and I was able to go out there and check those guys out, and then go sit with Damian and Trevor and hang out with those guys at their house and just chat about life and things moving forward. And, I'll give Blake a call and talk to him, especially, I reached out to him about my foundation. We had a good conversation, and he's a huge supporter as well, and whatnot. And so those typically are the guys that I've been, able to run into and close to it. There's even some foreign managers, Tyler Bewine and Andre, who coach. I know Tyler's at Blake. The Blake, I believe they call it, and then Andre's out at Mount Wisconsin. They actually made it to the state tournament this year.
Yeah,
and they played Damian's team. So we're the Gopher connection is strong around here. So I really stay in contact with a lot of the guys, and it's awesome to see. And that's why I think it's huge. As much as possible as we try to keep our talent in state. And I think Coach Johnson and the rest of the staff are going to do a great job. They're already off to a great start on doing that.
Yeah, what do you think of Coach Johnson and what you see so far in year one?
I think he's great. I feel like the product that they're putting on the floor is awesome. And I know a lot of people were really excited about the 10-1 start. And I think, that kind of, they kind of forgot that's like, hey, it's Coach Johnson's first year, the staff's first year together. You're bringing in a bunch of transfer guys, for the, and that a lot of them haven't played at this level. And then they're all going to come together and try to play for 1 year in the big. It was to be expected. It was the kind of year, I actually think they overachieved this year. And I think they brought a lot of excitement, to the barn that, I really didn't expect, to be honest. And that's a huge credit to Coach Johnson and the staff. Coach Thorson and Coach Kempton and Coach Jenkins with the, what they were able to do with the team. You could tell they're hard-nosed coaches. They're gonna play hard. They're never gonna quit. They're gonna be disciplined. And then, what's huge too is Coach Johnson allows the guys to play. Jamison Battle was amazing last year. I see him be a first team All Big Ten this year, right? With the way he played. So, I love their style, and I love what they're bringing to the University of Minnesota, and I love how they're building. And I also thought one of the other key elements that they brought into, C2F, where they came in and they really, emphasized alumni participation. Mm-hmm. And, they were huge on reaching out to us former Gophers and just, extending an arm and an olive branch to just come down and either watch practice or communicate with the team or, connect with Coach Johnson. So, and I think that's huge as well. And so I think they're off to an amazing start, and I can't wait for this year.
Yeah, it should be fun. As they say, season tickets are on sale now, so let's hope that I agree. And the Big Ten was tough last year. I mean, there were some really good teams, and I think it's always going to be tough, but I don't think there's as high end on the top, which might give that open door a chance for the Gophers to sneak through and find their way and claw their way into some contention of some things, maybe postseason or what have you. And then if you can get to that mark, then you set that as the base and continue to try to, move up the food chain in the league, because it's hard. I remember talking to Fred Hoiberg, he's struggling at, the former Timberwolves player. He's struggling at Nebraska a little bit, and talking with him in the pregame, he's like, man, this is a hard league to rebuild. There's so many good teams. Who you jumping, right? And so maybe this is the year that, it's not so top heavy that you can crawl ahead of a few people and hope that you keep them under you, and you maybe can, crawl your way up a little higher,
Yeah, and I think this year, for them in particular, they're, last year they had a good backcourt. They had a really good backcourt. However, they were lacking in the front court, and so I think this year with bringing in Pharrell Payne, I think he's going to have a much greater impact than people think. I've seen a couple highlights of him and whatnot, and I was extremely impressed. And I'm like, okay, well, you get this kid down to the U, you get him in that weight room, because it's already, it seems like he has a nice build to himself. And, you're able to plug him out there along with Darson Garcia and Jamison Battle, and you have a more sustainable front court, and then the guard play, of course, I'm sure is going to be top notch. With Coach Johnson being a former guard. But then, you just add that front court element, which I think they were missing in kind of, which is what separated the good teams in the big last year from the teams that were kind of at the lower tier at the bottom of the conference. And so, I'm excited and looking forward to it. And I mean, Darson Garcia, he's felt was he All-American, I believe?
Yeah, he was McDonald's All-American as a high schooler.
So that's going to be huge. And then, him and Jamison Battle playing side by side. And then, like I said, throwing Pharrell in there, and then the rest of the group, Braden Carrington, he's a sharpshooter coming in from Minnesota. So I'm really excited for this year. And I feel like, they'll do really well. And it'll be a whole different style of game once we have, some bodies down there in the post.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what Ben and his staff did, too, was kind of establish, even if they didn't win a lot of games, although 13 and 17, as you said, that might be overachieving, but they established the identity. And I think that is so important at a place, right, like Minnesota. Here's how we want to play. Fans can get behind it, because I did think the fans were really supportive, even through some tougher games. Although this team didn't get blown out much. And
there were close games, and that's the other thing. They played hard and they kept it close. There were just some times where you could just tell, like, hey, these other teams have more talent on the floor, and we got to realize we got guys coming from the D2 and other different entities. And not to say that those guys weren't good players. However, stepping into the big for 1 year under Coach Johnson is tough. But like you said, they built a nice foundation. And now we understand what the product's going to be like on the floor. We know what to expect from our players, and once we're able to bring in more talent, it's really gonna show. It's really gonna show.
Well, I can't have Al Nolen on my podcast without asking him about the University of Louisville and the University of Minnesota, the Arizona Cardinals football stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Tubby Smith coaching against Rick Pitino. By the way, Rick Pitino had a young assistant on that team named Richard Pitino. I interviewed, and it's funny, I interviewed Richard in that pregame show because Rick Pitino wouldn't do the opposing radio, and their sports information guy said, "We'll give you Richard Pitino." I'm like, "Who the hell's Richard Pitino?" And as it turned out, 2 or whatever, how many years later, he was the head coach here. And as you may or may not know, I loved working with Richard. I loved working with Tubby. I've been lucky in terms of the coaches to work with. So I was actually just texting. I hadn't talked to Richard in a while, and was texting with him a little bit ago. Maybe 2-3 weeks ago about some other stuff. But it was. He's enjoying his time in New Mexico. That said, that was a sidebar. I remember that game. I think that game was the difference maker in terms of when you looked at the resume. That's how you guys got into that tournament, into the NCAA tournament, because Louisville ended up being the number 1 overall seed that year, and you guys beat them. And it was, I'll never forget, Tubby just kept calling, I don't know what the play was, but it was basically a 1-4 flat. You were out front. You scored 18 points in a football stadium, man. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was an amazing game, and we went in, we were really fired up, and obviously, Coach Pitino led team from Louisville. We knew what time it is, we knew what the tradition was, and we knew, I believe those guys were ranked top 10 at the time, and they had a whole bunch of NBA talent. I was a sophomore, we were a younger team. It was our second year under Coach Smith. And so, we just went out there, played hard, executed the plan, and as you said, as the game dwindled down, Coach allowed me to just try and drive and create. And I was able to get a couple guys up and able to get to the free throw line and hit some free throws. And man, I couldn't believe and I think back on that too. We had Muhammad Ali was sitting front row as well at the game, and I forget all about that as well. But yeah, that was definitely a turning point, and that was definitely our real I guess. I can't even think of the word right now, but it was the game, like you said.
That was the marquee win of the year, right?
Marquee win to propel us into the NCAA tournament. And as you said, they ended up being the number 1 seed. So that was, one of the best games of my career, and a memory that I'll never forget, being able to beat Louisville. And it was awesome, as Coach Smith, used to coach under Coach Pitino. So, we wanted to win for him. We were like, man, it's your former boss. Let's get them out of there, Coach Smith. And so we were able to do it. And it was exciting. It was awesome.
Yeah, he wanted that win. What was it like playing for Tubby Smith?
It was great. It was tough though. He's an older coach, so he was, for sure team oriented, which most coaches are. But he was kind of like, hey, everybody, same shoes, no arm sleeves, no headbands, no extra jargon, So he was, it's just like playing for your granddad, where it's like no nonsense, nothing good happens after 12 o'clock. We have practices at 7 a.m. in the morning. And I believe a lot of guys are going to be able to handle that these days. But however, I was very appreciative because it helped us develop, into good, young men. And he developed a lot of character into us. And then also he's historical. He's a legend, Kentucky just retired, I guess we call it his jersey, but, hung him up in the rafters. Yeah. And so to be able to play for a legend like himself and then to learn from him and him to, push you every day to your limit and want you to be not only the best player on the floor, but also, be the best version of yourself off. It was amazing. And I can't thank him enough. And during the time, of course, I had my disagreements with him. And being a point guard, he was on my tail all the time. And my teammates would say the same thing, like, coach was the hardest on you. But however, it comes with the territory as a point guard. And so, I kind of struggled with adjusting to his style. As coach, but at the same time, it fit me. I was a defensive guy, I wasn't a scorer, and so he was all about, hey, go out there, play hard D, get the guys involved. And I'm like, perfect, that's right up my alley. And so it allowed me to excel in my position as well. So I'm extremely thankful for him.
Yeah, he was and is. I mean, I know he just retired, but when I would observe you guys in practice, and he was as nice of a guy as you'd ever want to meet off the court, right? Like you'd see him in the hallway and at his office. But man, was he a demanding dude when he got on the court, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's smiling at you, but when those doors close, when it's practice time, he gets intense.
Yeah.
And like I said, he was no nonsense, and he was all about working hard. And like I said, that's what helped us. If I didn't break my foot my senior year, we would have went to the NCAA tournament 3 out of the 4 years
right.
during my time, my time span there. Like I said, we were ranked 13th in the country, and even till then, it took to the very last couple of games where we were still in the hunt.
Yep.
Even after all of that, and so he brought a lot to the University of Minnesota. Sometimes I think that people didn't really understand with him being who he was as well. Was like it wasn't hard to recruit Minnesota because it's like, hey, it's Coach Smith is here, so a lot of the kids are like, hey, I want to play for the legendary Tubby Smith, so I'm not even going to look anywhere else. It's not going to take that much. I believe during my time we had I remember having like 6 or 7 or 8 guys from Minnesota in the rotation.
For sure.
And it was amazing. And so, he was awesome, playing here. And I hate how things ended for him here. But however, I was grateful and thankful to play for him. And I also, thank Coach Munson for even recruiting me because I was actually his recruit.
Right.
And then Coach Smith came, and I by the time I got there, Coach Smith was a coach by that time. But yeah, Coach Smith was an awesome guy, man. But that's not to say it wasn't easy at all. He was extremely demanding. However, he just wanted to bring the best out of you, and he did that.
Yeah, I love the guy. He was so good. Like I said, just a good dude with a good heart, and his wife Donna as well. And then I'm thinking, you mentioned the Minnesota kids. I mean, he did recruit at a high level, and Patino ran into this too. Just some dumb luck, some bad luck. Al Nolen, you broke your foot, and then I'm trying to think back. There were DeVoe decided he wanted to transfer, and some stuff where Royce White. I mean, think if he doesn't go sideways here, and look at the career he had at Iowa State. If he figures out a way to keep it going here, who knows where that where you guys would have gone, because you're thinking about Trevor and Rodney and Al and Ralph Sampson and Blake and I mean Joe Coleman. I think you guys crossed, right? You were on with Joe, or was he after you?
I was a year removed when Joe came.
Gotcha. Well, all those, in terms of all those guys, there was he stacked some talent, just some weird dumb luck, and had it gone just a bit different. That's what I have told people. I haven't told Ben this, but if any program is due some good luck for a run here, it's Minnesota, because there's been some self-inflicted wounds certainly over that time, but also just some dumb, stupid stuff that when you're at Minnesota, it's a fight, and if something goes wrong, it can go haywire pretty quickly. So let's hope the worm turns with Ben Johnson. But it's fun recalling some of those days, because there were some really good players that you guys were a part of, some good teams. And like you said, it would have been 3 out of 4 if you don't break your foot. Poor Blake had to play point guard.
Right.
And you're right. It was right up until the last, basically weekend into the season, or the last couple of weeks that just couldn't quite get the thing back on the track there. But it was fun to watch you guys play. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, hey, I've kept you too long already, a little longer than I said, but man, you've inspired us all. It just an amazing story. I hope people are inspired. I hope people, can help you out in any way with the Al Nolen Foundation, and have a great summer camp with these kids. This academy is so cool.
Yeah, and please, Gopher Nation, if you just want to send a letter of, just send a letter just to remind me of who you are, and just to remind me about old days, and I would love to hear from everyone. And my P.O. box is on my website, alnolenfoundation.org. And as Mike mentioned, please, if any support is definitely needed. Support is needed, and all support is gladly appreciated.
Very good. Al, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
There he is, one of our favorites with a great smile as always, Al Nolen. You can go to alnolenfoundation.org to learn more about his awesome program and for ways to help. I hope you enjoyed our conversation on the Go Gopher podcast, episode number 23. The Go Gopher podcast is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com. We're also sponsored by State Farm agent Tony Hoagland. Brandon Morton is our producer and technical expert. And again, I'd invite you to listen to past podcasts, and please be sure to hit the subscribe button to the Go Gopher podcast right now. It's absolutely free to listen at any time. And share the link on your social media channels. We'll talk again next week.